Hi, and welcome back to Plan First Live. I'm Sean Larkin from Plan First Design. We are a design company that specializes in architecture, interior, and landscaping design. Today, we're going to talk about indoor and outdoor flow in houses. Traditionally, indoors was kept very separate to outdoors, and a lot of people were either indoors or outdoors. There wasn't that transition from indoor to outdoor. But recent years, it has really become a trend, and people generally are embracing the outdoors a lot more than in the past. So indoor-outdoor living has become very popular. With that goes a couple of considerations to look at, which is one of the things that we'll be talking about today. Okay, so if we have a look at just generally, in the past, one's house did feel very much like a box. You had the front door with a long passage or corridor, and on the side going off that corridor were the rooms. And at the back of the house, you would maybe have one door going to the outside. So generally, houses had two doors, essentially a front door and a back door. And then the rest of the rooms just had windows. So when you were inside the house, you were very much cocooned inside that house. But if you have a look at this image now, that trend has totally changed. And we are inviting the outdoors to come into the house a lot more than what was done previously. So your house really shouldn't feel like a box. It's the garden should feel like an extension of your space. And that only happens through intentional design. You could have the big sliding folding doors that is very much the trend at the moment. But what is that door facing onto? Is it facing an untidy backyard, or is it facing a space that is intentionally designed to bring nature into the house? So quite often you don't need a bigger house. You just need a better experience. If you have a look at this image, for instance, if we didn't have that large opening, the living room would have been a lot smaller as an experience than what it actually feels now, because that space is actually drawn into the garden and into that outdoor patio space. So why does this matter? Because we speak a lot about psychology of design. And if you have a small space, small windows, small openings, no indoor-outdoor connection, you feel disconnected. The more lights coming into a space, the better the well-being and the higher the property value. So even if you have a small house, just by opening up to the outdoors, you're already making it feel 30 to 50% larger just by linking those two. Even if it's a visual connection to the outdoors and not a physical door that you walk through, you can have a big picture window looking onto a garden space or a courtyard, and it still makes that space feel bigger because it's drawing you to the outside. The core concepts, what is indoor-outdoor living? Essentially, it's a seamless connection between the house and the garden. So you want to blur the lines between inside and outside, and you want to have that visual and preferably physical connection between the two. So it's all about how the space flows, be it visually or physically. Traditionally, indoors and outdoors was thought of as rooms. So you would have your rooms within the house, but then the outdoor space it wasn't a zone that connected as a continuation of your house. It was a separate space. Even if it was a patio that was connected to the house, you never had this flow. You might have had one small single door, or at best a double door, connecting those two spaces. So the outdoor patio, even though it was next to the house, still felt like a separate room. So what we try and do now is we take our living space and we very intentionally design that transition from the living space to the outdoor space or zone that could be, in this case, a seating area or a dining area. The psychology of it, humans, if you think of prehistoric man that didn't actually have formal housing, they were very connected to nature, a lot more than we are today. But we are wired to be connected to nature. We come from nature. So if you have those natural views, it does give you a soothing feel. It does reduce stress without a doubt, and it's calming. So having that connection to nature and having that view of nature is actually worth more than an expensive interior design, just as far as calming and having a serene feel goes. Then one of the ways that we do this is, there's a couple of ways, but the first one is using the same materials. So in this instance, the flooring is the same from the inside to the outside. So it feels as though that space is continued. If that flooring on the outside had been a different material, it would have felt like a separate space. Whereas now it feels just like a continuation of that space, and it gives you the illusion that the indoors is actually bigger than what it really is. So continuing your interior floor finish to the outside, definitely one way to connect the two. And then use the same color palette as well. By having the same floor finish and having the same color palette, by having the same timber used on the outside patio as what perhaps the inside cabinetry is, or the kitchen finish, or the furniture, it just connects those spaces seamlessly. And it again makes the smaller spaces feel bigger. Just having a look at this image, the courtyard that they've got there, it is an open courtyard, so they've intentionally designed that space and created it as a garden space. It could have potentially just been a dead space, but they've designed it very intentionally, put that glass wall so that the house gets drawn into that courtyard. And it just makes everything feel bigger. Alignment is an interesting one. So if you have an axis in the interior of your house, say as an example, you have your front door opening up into your living space, and on the central axis to that living space, you've got either a picture window looking at the garden, or you've got a large bifold door. Try and keep that axis strong between the interior and the exterior of the house. So even having a feature in your garden, be it a tree, a water feature, we spoke about gardens a couple of weeks ago, have one of those feature elements on the central axis of your interior of your house, and it just strengthens the whole experience. So also you can face your furniture towards the strongest exterior view, and design that garden so that it complements the inside of the house. It's pointless having all these beautiful large windows and doors if you're not going to put the design effort into the garden, and it just ends up being an untidy backyard full of weeds. Then I think one's missing the point altogether. So intention is very important. Here we have the windows or the sliding doors. That whole entire wall has been intentionally designed to be a glass wall looking onto that beautifully landscaped garden. So it creates actually a picture frame around that garden, which is a brilliant way to exhibit your garden and to bring that outdoors inside. Then openings, we have spoken a couple of times about lighting and how you would layer lighting. Now, artificial lighting is one thing. We speak about the general lighting, the ambient lighting, task lighting, etc. But Natural light is the same. So you would not just have large doors, you would have windows, you could have skylights. The bigger your openings are, obviously, the more connected you're going to be to the outdoors, and the more of a connection you're going to create. But we'll have a look at layering that experience as well. Sliding doors versus folding doors. So this comes down to budget to a large extent. Sliding doors are probably the more practical and certainly budget-friendly choice. But the downside to them is that you can't open that opening fully. I mean, a sliding door, typically you would slide the one half in front of the other half, but you will always have that panel of glass. So you'll get the visual connection, but you won't get the physical connection. Whereas bifold doors, you can open that entire space, which personally I prefer, but it does come at a higher price point. So just toss it up. My preference as a designer is I would personally rather go for one larger bifold door where you can open that entire space, and then maybe sacrifice somewhere else in the house. Maybe have some smaller windows, or just to reduce budget elsewhere to be able to afford at least one nice big opening from your living area into your garden space. The bifold doors that open all the way definitely do give you a more luxurious feel to the house as well. And when you are designing either new or doing a renovation, always keep a resale value in the back of mind. If you have an open home and you have 30 families coming through the home, and you've got that wow factor of that big opening and that beautiful garden that's coming or being invited actually into the house, I think your sale is going to go a lot smoother, and I do believe that you will get a higher price for that house. So maybe a smaller price to pay upfront, but long-term huge value and a better experience of that space as well. Then it's not always possible. We don't always have volumes like this in homes. But when you do design, try and design for lighting not just around the edges of the house. Try and bring the light in as far as possible into that room. So give careful consideration to your aspect. Have a look at your sun path and make sure that you can get as much light as possible into that space. Then layered openings, which is what I touched on earlier. Combine doors, windows, and skylights. The reason for this is it gives you dynamic lighting. So you might have, when the sun does start going down and it does start getting a bit darker, you'd still have some light coming in from the skylight. Also, first thing in the morning, your skylight would be the first to get the light. And that light will change throughout the day. So that interior space is never going to look quite exactly the same. If you do find the sunlight a little bit harsh in the area that you live, have a look at getting tinted glass for your skylight, just to tone down the sun if you are scared that it's going to be a little bit too harsh and make the interior a little bit too bright. Alternatively, you could also have some kind of covering which is mechanically operated. So you could, if it does get a little bit harsh, you could cover it up with a custom-made item. You could also, in certain instances, have skylights that open. So they could be set on timers or sensors that when if the light gets to a certain intensity, those skylights will open to let airflow through. Also, if they do sense that there's rain, they'll automatically close. So there's a lot of options of what one can do just to bring the outside in. And skylights also work extremely well if you do have trees, large trees outside that are visible through that skylight. then it's actually bringing the garden in, not just from the sides, but from the top as well. Sometimes you will have it that the tree will shade that skylight at the warmest part of the day, which means you'll have that shade cast into the house, which is great. Then blurring the lines between inside and outside, you want to try and have it as seamless as possible. And a good way of doing this is having greenery near your transition space. So green walls is a great way of doing this. So that would be on the side. I haven't shown it in this instance, but you could actually almost wrap that whole garden around into your house if this wall was a biophilic wall with plants in it. But a good way to blur the lines between inside and outside, especially if you've got that opening that opens all the way up. Next one, yes, this is also important, is try and keep your materials as natural as possible, because on the outside you've got natural elements. You've got the plants, you've got soil, you've got rocks, which are all natural elements. So try and steer away from artificial elements, perhaps artificial stone and things like that, because, even though it could still look real, it's not going to give you that same experience. And I think your brain does, your subconscious does experience the difference. So if you can, try and keep it as natural as possible. And then sensory, of course, going hand in hand with a biophilic design is you want the sound of running water. You want to be able to smell those plants, have some flowering plants, fresh air coming in, the airflow. It just gives you such a lovely, natural, serene feel. Running water is really underrated, I believe. And then great design is not always about what it looks like. It's about how you experience it and how it makes you feel. You could have design that looks fantastic, but you just don't feel comfortable there. It's maybe a little bit too structured, or it doesn't have any life to it, in that there are no plants. So I believe in bringing plants in. It's a very important part of the design work that I do. Then your outdoor spaces, when you design them and when you furnish them, give them as much attention as you would give the inside of your house. Design it like you would any other room. Make sure that the furniture is comfortable. Make sure that you've got the throws, the soft cushions. Obviously, your actual furniture, make sure that it is weatherproof. The cushions you wouldn't leave outside if you don't have a cover. So keep that in mind when you're doing the design as well. Is there's a reasonable amount of cushions on this particular couch? They need to be stored somewhere. So make sure that you've got enough storage space for them if this is a pergola that doesn't have a roof. If you do have a roof over covering it, which I recommend, that is first prize, because you can use that space throughout the year. Also, if it does rain, you can still use that space. Alternatively, if it's just impossible for whatever reason to have a cover, just make sure you do have space to store those cushions, otherwise they'll get ruined in no time. Then looking at outdoor dining, it's a great way to extend your kitchen. Personally, I would have preferred to have this whole interior, exterior open, but maybe in this case, it was a budget constraint. They do still have the visual connection. They've used the same materials on the inside and the outside, same flooring, same lights, timber. So great connection between inside and outside. And then your circulation space, again, make sure that you are intentional with your design. As I mentioned earlier, this is a good example of the axis that I was talking about. So they have this transition walkway between their dining and their fire pit, or if I can call it seating area. Let's call it a seating area. Good way to differentiate the seating area from the dining is through different levels, which they've done successfully here. So still very much part of the same area, but the different zones on different levels. And they've also got this axis, which is your central walkway, with a very intentional window placed on the other end of the house. So it draws you into the house, and similarly, if you're in the house, it'll draw you to the outside. Clever use of frosted glass in that window. They must probably have their service area at the back, so you wouldn't want clear glass because that is an area you wouldn't necessarily want to see. But very intentionally designed this. It's great use of space. If you've got a small space, let's say you're in an apartment, you've got a balcony. It might not be a large balcony, but if you intentionally design that balcony to be a zone with a function, with your planting on it, you're almost creating another room to the house. Transition it from inside to outside, same flooring. You can see they've transitioned with the same flooring, and then they've moved to maybe a harder wood, something that can take the elements a little bit better. But they've got their seating area there. It feels very much like part of the house or the apartment. But it is an outdoor space, which I believe is very important for all of us to have that outdoor connection. So even a balcony in an apartment can feel like a room. Climate and the weather. Make sure when you are designing this transition space, design for sun, for rain, and also for wind. There's no point having a beautiful outdoor area like this if you are in a wind zone that does get really high, severe winds. It's unpleasant to sit outside when you've got wind like that. So design for it. Make sure you do have some form of structure that you can close. If you can do it as a glass wall, that's great because you've still got the view. But I always believe in covering your outdoor seating area as far as possible. Even if you don't cover all the areas that you have outside, make sure that at least one is covered, preferably the one that is closest to the house, so that you have got that. I mean, those doors can stay open even when it rains. It's not going to rain into the house. So you're still experiencing. And also, you know, when it rains, it's a different sensory experience. You smell the rain, you get a little breeze of that rain smell every now and again. So it just adds to your daily living, your everyday experience. And if we can make every day of life a good experience, why not? And privacy. This is important in the spacing or the housing that we live in currently. We are living closer and closer to each other. So a great way to actually make your space private is through plants, firstly, but through screens as well. You'll see in this image, we've got the screen between this house and the neighboring house. A very soft screen out of natural materials. It doesn't feel harsh. It doesn't feel like a concrete jungle at all. But it does just break your space into a more private space. Have intentionally left a gap at the top so that you do see that landscaping on the other side, just to soften it a bit, but good way of doing it. And with the levels as well, as we saw a couple of slides back. So it just keeps your space private while keeping it open. The common mistakes that we do see, firstly, is using different materials on the inside and on the outside. And you can compare this image to some of the images we looked at previously. It feels totally disjointed. It's an uncomfortable space. Your inside and your outside are on different levels, which is fine. We do have slopes that we need to work with, but try and have the space directly next to your interior on the same level. You can always take your stairs down a little bit further on, but give yourself at least 1 meter or 1.5 meters if you can, just to transition on the same level with the same material. Don't block your pathway with pot plants and things. Keep it clear. You know, we spoke about clutter last week. Try not to clutter your exterior either. So in this instance, the sliding door, it's just awkward. Everything in this image is actually just awkward. Nothing wrong with the space. It's just poor design. So have a look at that before you just start. I find often as well, people, they don't do the master plan of their space before they start. They think, oh, it's a good idea to have a spa tub. They go out, they buy the spa tub. It just randomly gets placed somewhere, wherever it's convenient at that moment in time. And then later on, they think, you know, actually, this wasn't the best use of the space. The spa pool should maybe have been placed somewhere else. Do a master plan before you do your design, and design your outside along with your inside at the same time. Don't do it as an afterthought, which I think a lot of people do. And that comes from, it's traditionally been done like that, I think. Very few gardens were designed when the house was designed, especially when you have suburbs and mass housing. You know, they've got one floor plan that gets built over 50 houses. So a second thought is not given to the landscaping or to the garden space. But nowadays, a little bit different. I think homeowners are a little bit more savvy about that, and they know what they want. So I think the homeowner and the consumer is a lot more informed nowadays than what they were in previous days. And then great design is not about making your space bigger or making your home bigger. It's about creating a better experience. So if you can create your indoor-outdoor transitions well, using the few principles, and we repeat the same principles a lot of the time, because those principles cover over multiple design spaces, whether you're doing an interior design, whether you're doing an exterior design, whether you're designing a kitchen or a bathroom or a living room, the principles all remain the same. You want enough natural light, you want ventilation, you want smooth transitions, you don't want too many different materials and too many different colors. So it's about making your spaces feel more connected. So you can have a beautifully designed, very small home. If you look at the tiny homes, there are some fabulous tiny homes, and they do that all through intentional design. You have to design very intentionally when you're doing small space design. And there are some really, really good examples out there. So to talk about next week's topic, and this is where our weekly chat is going to start getting exciting. We're going to start implementing some of the theory that we've spoken about by actually redesigning spaces, having a look at a space that's maybe not very well designed. I don't like calling it bad design, but how to improve a design that's maybe not optimal. So we'll take some of the theory that we've spoken about and go through a design. It's going to be a short 15-minute exercise where we'll just show you, we'll take a design, show you how, firstly, we'll look at the bad things and how it can be improved. And we'll show you how we improve it and why we make those decisions. And also we will then have a look at the outdoor space and try and bring those elements in of what we spoke about today, so that you can start just getting your head around the principles of design and what you should look for, be it your living room, bedroom, kitchen. Even a kitchen benefits from a good outdoor view and a good layout, a good design, a comfortable design. So that's what we'll be looking at next week. Remember, you're always more than welcome to get in touch with us. And if you do have, as a matter of fact, if you have a design that you'd like us to look at next week, feel free to contact us and send it through to us. and we might just pick your layout and show you how you can improve it. So you might see your home on this broadcast next week. But that is it for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I did enjoy the talk today, and I do look forward to next week's chat, where we will actually be doing a little bit of practical design. So on that note, have a good week and see you all next week.